Okay, today we are playing a game on King's Row. We are playing Reinhardt the entire way through, and there was no SR for today's game because it was a placement game. We're also on the console today, by the way, so consider yourself forewarned. What a startling display of professionalism. It's not even set to when the game's starting. Ho ho. Okay. So we've got to attack King's Row first. As you can see, the video's not very long. So do we get wrecked, or do we wreck them? Because those are the only two real options. So they got a Farah, which is inconvenient to us as Reinhardt, but it's alright, Moira's just killed her somehow. Why were we charging over here? Are we just actually disconnecting? Because, or do we think that was the enemy Moira? I don't know, either way. Unnecessary. So we're gonna slowly march our way in. Their only tank appears to be D.Va, which is very tragic for them. They also have Mei, if you want to count her. At least I think I saw Mei. Yeah, that's a Mei over there. So they don't exactly have a super tanky lineup right now. So we shouldn't put the shield back up right now, because it's currently at 600 health, which is a waste of time, basically. Gotta wait for it to actually reach a reasonable amount of health. And, like, their team is really bad at breaking barriers, and also they don't have a barrier themselves. They have D.Va and they have Mei as far as tanks go. So all we've got to do is wait for this to be pretty healthy, like 1,500 or more if you're feeling particularly patient, and then we can just like walk right at them. And what are they really going to do about it? Instead, we elect to take the most direct route possible, which is to charge 5,000 feet right into them, which was not super recommended. I think we didn't even need to go all the way over there. No, we want... Oh, I do notice some latency happening right there, though. You see that? Ooh, everything just sort of shifts around a little bit. No, we were real greedy. We went straight for the D.Va as well, even though it's going to start taking us through the archway. So, latency, I see it. So this was not a super recommended charge. Nonetheless, you want your charge to be as short as possible, not as long as possible. So if we're going to pin somebody, we don't want to start going through the archway. We want to stay near the objective. We also don't want to go super fucking far. Oh, Mei's just used her ultimate. It looks like it got eaten, or she died before it could actually get tossed out. Either way, she's sad, no doubt, and currently complaining. Oh, they have a Zarya. That's also a tank, sort of. Great job, enemy team. So Moira, Lord only knows what she was fucking up to all the way over there. She died. So she got exactly what was coming to her, because she's like fucking 3 streets over right now. Still have Farah, still inconvenient. There's no point holding the shield up right now, because we've actually already captured this checkpoint. So if people want to go over here and stand in the doorway and get fucking murdered because they're stupid, that's their own business. We want the shield to actually be healthy when we start actually pushing our way through here. So now we're actually starting to push our way through here. And do they have the D.Va still? Yeah, there's D.Va. Okay, I was like, they only have a Zarya as their tank now? That would also be tragic. So I can certainly see the latency issue that we're having. It looks a little bit like we're made of uranium. Need to take the shield down, like, way sooner than this. Because, like, already at this point, I'm like, alright, shield might break now, so I'm going to take it down. But we take it down to 113 health. Let's not do that. Because, of course, you don't want the shield to break. Because once it breaks, it goes on cooldown. And when it goes on cooldown, like it is right now, so we just sort of stand here. What's gonna happen first? Is it gonna come off cooldown, or are we gonna die? We're gonna fucking die by like 0.2 seconds, tragically. It's alright, their D.Va killed more people with her self-destruct. That's why you don't want to let the shield break. Because even 1 health will block a D.Va explosion. But no barrier? Dead. I think we could have actually just gotten around the corner as well, but I think we were just like, please, 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 please. Also latency, I suppose, also maybe part of it. So Mei's up there, I guess. But that's why you don't want to let the shield break, because that's known to happen. Similar things can happen, such as Deadeye can also happen. Doomfist can happen, because you can block his ultimate's shockwave as well. So we've gotten it most of the way through at this point. We got it all the way to the second checkpoint, so, you know, you might be able to infer roughly how this game goes. Or, well, I guess, no. that wouldn't work out timeline-wise. I was gonna be like, it could be we get it, like, most of the way to the end, but then they stomp us on the return. I don't think there's mathematically enough time left for that one. So we've got Earthshatter built up. This is not a smart decision to make, but as you can see, we remain unpunished for it, because this charge is, like, across the entire world, once again. You want it to be as short as possible, but we actually ran the entire duration, thanks to Halt. You just don't want to have to go that far, for the reason of it gives them less time to respond the closer you are to them, and which makes it less likely you're going to die, take a bunch of damage, or get crowd controlled. And you also just don't want to be entirely behind the enemy team, because then your team can't really help you, right? Because you, the main tank, have just charged through the entire enemy team. The supports are just sitting back at the choke point, like, the DPS are like, then try and walk through the doorway while you're getting murdered over there, but then they're getting murdered walking through the doorway. It tends to be sad like that. That's the Hanamura experience I'm basically describing. So we sleep, but we get woke. Latency. Yes. Have you considered getting a better internet provider? Alternatively, maybe plug your computer into your router, because that does make a significant difference to be wired as opposed to wireless. When I was on a wireless connection, I got somewhere in the region of 3 megabytes down and like 1 megabyte up. Plugging it in, I get 30 megabytes down and like 8 megabytes up. Significant difference. Plug your computer into your router. Or your console, I suppose. You can plug a PS4 into a router. Can you plug a Switch into a router? Can you do that? Does the Switch do you need an adapter, don't you? There's an adapter for the Switch, I think. Whatever, who cares? We don't play Overwatch on the Switch. We can play a lot of games on the Switch, but not Overwatch. One day, probably. There's one of those things where, like, everything is slowly making its way to the Switch. Have you seen that Diablo is going to be on the Switch? Like, that's about as far away from the Nintendo demographic as you could possibly imagine, isn't it? Over here we have Mario, and then over here we have the Lord of Hell. It seems a little bit, opposed, doesn't it? Mind you, Bayonetta's already been there, which is along a very similar line, isn't it? Except with more tits. So, an objective improvement is basically what I'm saying. So our shield is, like, real low right now. When you get bubbled by Zarya, just take the barrier down. Unless you think taking the barrier down is gonna get people behind you killed, but it probably won't. Because as you can see, Reinhardt in the bubble isn't that much smaller than the barrier itself, honestly. So, just take the barrier down when you've been bubbled. Try and make it easier to get charged for Zarya, and also while you've got your barrier going, while you've got the bubble on you, you can just, like, take your barrier down and let it save some health, maybe regenerate a little bit as well. So we didn't quite countercharge that boy in time, but given that earlier we saw, like, people quantum leaping, we'll give the benefit of the doubt and assume it was latency related rather than anything else. So we did once again charge very, very fucking far. There isn't, like, really much that can punish us on their team for that, because as we saw, there was only Lucio, Orisa, and Widowmaker. Widowmaker being the most likely thing to punish us, but I mean, it's a console Widowmaker, so how scary can it really be? So we do have Earthshatter built up. This is the worst thing about having, like, bad latency, is that it makes it a lot harder to get Earthshatter past the enemy Reinhardt. They actually have a Winston now. I just saw Winston die up in the kill feed, so I guess they don't have a Reinhardt anymore. Oh, that makes it easier to get it past the Reinhardt when they don't have one. So, I forgot we were playing on console for a second because that rotation was so awkward looking. I was like, yeah, I guess, So Winston's probably feeling real fucking targeted right now, because he was the only one in that Graviton. And then he was the only person that died to Deadeye as well. She has just barely slipped back into safety. So we are super overextending right now. There was also no point to using Fire Strike right there because we already have our ultimate built up and he was inside of his spawn. So it was not exactly likely to convert into a kill. So that we could have just saved the Fire Strike right there. It's one of those things where, like, once you have Earth Shatter, you don't really want to use Fire Strike unless you think the Fire Strike will kill somebody. Optimistic, it did get Zenyatta. Zenyatta's probably upset about that one. What the fuck are you doing? Now we're going to kill him a second time. So thank you for staggering the Zenyatta for us right there, Mercy. Great job, great job, great job. Don't die and don't get your teammates killed are both very good advice. And aim better is not good advice. Don't die is good advice, though. Okay. Because here's the thing with dying, right? Because I think you can see roughly how this is going to go. So I'm going to go off onto a tangent now because I feel like it. So here's the thing with dying, right? There's 3 resources in Overwatch, right? There's health, there's ult charge, and there's time. Time's the important one, because time is the only resource that's finite. You can always get more health, you can always get more ult charge, you can't get more time. It's capped, right? So every time you die, it's like somebody reached over and just took some of your time resource away, right? Let me illustrate it to you like this. Imagine we're attacking Hanamura, right? So your time resource for the first checkpoint of Hanamura is 4 minutes. And let's say every time you die, it takes 15 seconds to get back, right? Because you got to respawn, which is 10 seconds, and then actually get back to the front, which we'll just say it takes 15 seconds. So every time you die on Hanamura, somebody's reached over and taken 15 seconds out of your time resource. And that doesn't sound like a lot like that, but it adds up real fucking fast, because you die twice. Somebody's reached over and took 30 seconds out of your time resource. And already that's starting to get like, oh shit, 30 seconds. That's like a whole team fight opportunity we could have had right there. 3 times, 45 seconds. You die 4 times. Somebody's reached over and taken an entire minute out of your time resource, right? That's 25% of your total time for the first checkpoint on Hanamura. So, and like 4 deaths is like, a lot of people die more than 4 times over the course of a game. Especially on like Hanamura, which often turns into a fucking grinder. So, not dying is really important, because it's just, you're dead, that's like 15 seconds, like, on average. Sometimes it can be more. Like, if you're on, like, attacking, like, King's Row second checkpoint, you get it most of the way towards the end. If you die, it takes you probably, like, 25 seconds to get back, if you're not, like, a super mobile hero, right? Like, just a Mercy walking takes a fucking long time to get back. Same with, like, Numbani's second checkpoint, right? So it's just like, every time you die, that's time you're flat out not interacting with the game, can't possibly interact with the game, you're just losing time, and the enemy team is gaining time. Because the team that's got less people on, like, it's hard to win a fight when you're at a numbers disadvantage. So you're losing time every time you die, and the enemy team is gaining time every time you die. So don't die is important, because if you're alive, you can interact with the game. And if you're dead, you can't interact with the game. So I'm sure, like, that's startling information, I'm sure. I'll also remind you to not mistake a welding iron for a wanking sock also, right? Seems obvious, but honestly, the amount of times I've just seen somebody run out there to touch an objective for the sake of touching the objective, or the Mercy fly out there to res somebody for the sake of resing somebody. They don't seem to appreciate just how important not fucking dying is. And that's also not counting the fact that you give the enemy team ult charge every time you die, right? Because it's suddenly, especially if you're playing a tank, right? You're playing like fucking Hammond, you just fling yourself bodily into there, you just fed the enemy team 600 damage worth of ult charge. It's bad. It's bad. So, get a better internet provider or plug your computer in. So thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer. If you haven't already, you can join our Discord and ask questions more directly and have a conversation about them, or just shitpost with us, and I hope you found the video helpful.